All right, let's dive into Peter Thiel's 0 to 1. Now, this isn't your typical business book. It's not a step-by-step manual. Instead, it's a whole new way to think, specifically about how you can build companies that create things that have never existed before.
So let's just jump right in with the book's most famous question, the one Thiel apparently asks every single person he interviews. What important truth do very few people agree with you on? It sounds so simple, right? But it's actually brutally hard to answer. Why? Well, for one, our entire education system is about teaching us what's already been agreed upon. And, psychologically, it takes real guts to say something most people will disagree with. But answering this, that's the very first step toward thinking for yourself.
And that single question really frames the entire challenge of building the future. Thiel sees the future as this massive choice between two totally different kinds of progress. Because what makes the future so important isn't just that it's coming, it's that it will be different from today. The question is, how? Okay, so on one hand, you've got what he calls horizontal progress, or 1 to n. Think of it this way. You have one typewriter, and you figure out how to mass produce 100 more. You're just copying things that already work. The simple word for this is globalization. But then there's vertical progress, or 0 to 1. This is doing something completely new. It's taking that typewriter and inventing a word processor. That's technology.
So what's Thiel's own answer to that big contrarian question? Here it is. He argues that while pretty much everyone thinks globalization is what's going to define our future, the real truth is that technology matters way more. But why? Because we live in a world with limited resources. Simply copying the same old ideas over and over again, that's not sustainable. That path leads to conflict and devastation, not wealth.
So if this game-changing 0 to 1 technology is so important, where does it actually come from? Well, Thiel's answer is simple: startups. I mean, think about it. Big established organizations, they're designed to move slowly and avoid risk at all costs. A lone genius might create a beautiful piece of art, but they're not going to build a whole industry. But a startup is the biggest group of people you can convince to believe in a plan to build a totally different future. They're small enough to be fast, and more importantly, they're small enough to actually think.
This brings us to probably the most controversial idea in the whole book. Thiel basically takes a piece of conventional wisdom we all hold sacred and just shatters it. And that is the idea that competition is the heart and soul of capitalism.
You've heard this a million times, right? Competition is healthy. It makes businesses better. It gives consumers better prices. It's the bedrock of our economy. Our schools drill it into us. Sports are built on it. But what if that's completely, totally wrong?
And here's where Thiel drops the bombshell. He says capitalism and competition are actually opposites. Think about it. Capitalism is about accumulating capital, right? Making profits. But in what economists call perfect competition, all the profits get competed away until nobody's making any real money. It just becomes this brutal, bloody struggle for survival.
Just look at the difference here. In a perfect competition world, every company is basically interchangeable. They're all selling the same stuff, they're all forced to take whatever price the market gives them, and in the long run, their profits basically go to zero. But a creative monopoly, that's a company that is so good, so unique at what it does, that nobody else can offer a close substitute. It gets to own its market, set its own prices, and as a result, it can generate massive profits for years and years.
And this is a perfect real-world example. Back in 2012, the U.S. airline industry was a bloodbath of competition. For every passenger they flew, they made a measly 37 cents in profit. That same year, Google, which has a monopoly on search, had a profit margin of 21%. That's more than 100 times bigger. It's no wonder that today, Google is worth more than all the U.S. airlines combined. It's not even close.
So the secret sauce, the big takeaway here is this. If you want to build a business that actually creates and captures lasting value, you have to build a monopoly. You don't want to build just another commodity business. Thiel even flips that famous Tolstoy line on its head. He says all happy companies are different because each one solved a unique problem to become a monopoly. But all failed companies, they're all the same. They just couldn't escape the nightmare of competition.
Now, this brings us to another myth that Thiel just loves to dismantle. This idea that success is basically random, that it's all a matter of luck. This is really about a fundamental question. can you and should you actually design your future?
So Thiel lays out these 4 ways you can view the future. And he argues that in the past, the Western world ran on what he calls definite optimism. This was the belief that the future would be better, but only if we planned it and built it ourselves. This is the mindset that gave us incredible, ambitious projects like the Golden Gate Bridge and the Apollo program. People had a clear vision of a better future, and they built it.
But where are we now? According to Thiel, we're stuck in indefinite optimism. We kind of, sort of, vaguely expect the future to get better, but we have no concrete plans for how that's going to happen. This is a mindset that prefers process over substance. Think about the rise of finance, which is all about rearranging old capital, or law, which is about arguing over old rules. It's like taking a portfolio approach to the future. You just diversify and hedge your bets instead of making one bold, correct bet on a specific vision.
And this whole indefinite mindset was really burned into the culture of Silicon Valley by the dot-com crash. That experience was so traumatic, it created this new dogma based entirely on fear. Grand visions are dangerous, so just take tiny, incremental steps. Don't make a plan, instead stay lean, which is really just code for being unplanned. And don't try to create a new market, just improve on what the competition is already doing.
But Thiel argues that the exact opposite principles are actually the right ones. You need a bold plan if you're ever going to create something new. In fact, a bad plan is way better than no plan at all. You have to risk being bold instead of just being trivial. And by the way, sales, how you actually get your product into people's hands, that matters every bit as much as the product itself.
So if a startup needs a definite, bold plan, what about a person? What about you? This is where Thiel's whole philosophy gets really, really personal. I mean, our entire culture pretty much screams at us that your life is a lottery. From the time you're a little kid, you're told to hoard extracurriculars, to build this perfectly generic, well-rounded resume, all for some unknowable future. You're taught to keep your options open, to diversify your life like it's a mutual fund.
Thiel just rejects this completely. And he brings up this incredible quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson to make his point. Shallow men believe in luck. Strong men believe in cause and effect. In other words, strong people don't just wait for good things to happen. They believe they can make them happen through their own deliberate action.
And this is why, for him, a startup is the ultimate expression of this whole philosophy. It's more than just a business. It's a vehicle for rejecting the tyranny of chance. It's the biggest possible project where you can exercise what he calls definite mastery, where you can actively shape not just your own life, but a small, important piece of the world.
So if there is one single thing to take away from all this, let it be this. You are not a lottery ticket. Success is never an accident. You have to reject randomness. You have to take control. You can and you must design your future.
And this brings us right back to where we started. But now it has a whole new meaning. This is the business version of that first contrarian question. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What valuable company is nobody building? What secret have you discovered that could be the foundation of a great business? Because the best paths, the most valuable paths, are always the ones that are new and untried.